Okay, so it's time to really address this issue. And it relates to what Ray was saying in the interview with the custody queens. And there's three statements, or really two statements, that Ray made that really throw a lot of people for a loop. So I'm going to expose it in this video. One of the things that he said that has everybody just in arms is, if admissible, there is a lot of evidence that nobody's seen that would show the pattern of life would prove BK guilty. So people think that there's this evidence that nobody's seen that shows that BK's guilty. And I can contend, no, there is absolutely nothing that nobody has seen that proves a pattern of life that BK is guilty. But what Ray is referring to when he says that, in my humble opinion, is what's called his behavioral fusion. And that is actually the title of his training manual that he is currently traveling around training law enforcement and FBI personnel about this behavioral fusion concept of his. And then he goes on to mention they already had Kohberger's name in a report, and they should have found him that way instead of utilizing the IGG and everything about the IGG that they utilized. And what I want to do is explain everything from Ray's point of view, and then I'll explain why this all falls on its face. Number one, behavioral fusion. Again, in his new book, The Truth Line, Behavioral Fusion and the Validation of Evidence, Ray, it's this concept of behavioral fusion that Ray is really referring to with a pattern of life. Now, when he says there were actual documents that had Brian Kohberger's name in it other than the IGG that they should have used to find Brian Kohberger, let me explain what he means. It's not going to be some document that's going to come out of left field for anybody. It's really simple. There's two documents that's going to have Brian Kohberger's name in it. One we've seen in the probable cause, or saw in the probable cause affidavit. And that is on November 25th, MPD asked area law enforcement agencies to look out for the white Hyundai Elantras in the area. On the 29th at 12:28, WSU police officer Daniel Tiengo queried white Elantras registered at WSU. As a result of that query, he located a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania license plate LFZ 8649. So this is going to be the first time that Kohberger is going to appear in a record in this case. Even though nobody followed up on this particular record, it was one of thousands of records of entries of people in the area that were driving white Hyundai Elantras. That's all it was. It was a log as an entry into a list that they were amassing of anybody that was driving a white Hyundai Elantra at the time. Now, when they compile the list through entries like WSU queries, as well as all other law enforcement logging cars from the Be on the Lookout, the FBI tip line received 22,000 tips about white Hyundai Elantras. This list would have been compiled and entered into a database. So this entry would be added to the growing list of drivers of white Elantras as early as actually 11/29/22. Next, this is what everybody's missing. This is what Ray is actually talking about in the interview with the custody queens. And that is on March 20th, 2022, somebody in the Kohberger household bought the Amazon gift card. And then on the 21st, somebody in the Kohberger household bought a specific model of K-bar knife, which is the U.S. Marine Corps fighting knife straight, for $86 using the Amazon electronic gift card. The billing information went back to Brian, and the address it was shipped to was Brian's. Now, it was a family account, so other people in the household used that account. So there's no way to determine who actually purchased the knife. But the fact that it was purchased on March 20th or March 21st, 2022 through Amazon by the Kohberger household is very big when you relate it to what Cy Ray was talking about. Here's what I mean. We know that there was a search warrant issued by Maori to Amazon requesting every single K-bar knife, USMC fighting knife 1217S, the straight model, issued to Amazon January 1st, 2022 to the present day. So, and that would actually not just get the purchases, but all the account information for the individuals that purchased it, their affiliated websites, contact information, billing information, account opening date, account closing date, any other information connected with the identified accounts, order details, purchase history, payments, how did they pay for it, all customer interaction between Amazon. They requested all of this information from Amazon from anybody that had purchased a K-bar knife from January 1st, 2022, all the way up until November 26, 2022, when he filed this search warrant, and every bit of information that came with it. So the fact that the Koberger household purchased that particular K-bar on March 21st, 2022 tells us that this warrant that was requested of Amazon by Maori actually returned Brian Koberger's household as one of the households that purchased this knife, along with, probably thousands of other ones. But November 26, 2022 is when he filed for the warrant. It came back with this list of names on December 8th, 2022, when he got the email, which contained the requested information. So BK knife purchase would be added to the list on December the 8th, 2022. So now they've got an Amazon list of everybody that purchased K-bar knives through Amazon. They also have a list of everybody that purchased knives through several other vendors. Now they've got a list of everybody that has purchased these K-bar knives. They have a list, growing list, possibly up to 22,000 of logged entries of people who drive white Hyundai Elantras. But then they've got the geographical area of Idaho, and they have an idea of everybody on these two lists that were in the area. So they could easily remove a lot of the people on the list that purchased K-bar knives and narrow it down to people who lived in the area at the time. And they could do the same with the Hyundai Elantra. And this is what Cy Ray is talking about, is they should have taken this list and the Hyundai Elantra, got a warrant for Koberger's phone, checked all of the information around Koberger's phone using his behavioral fusion method, and then came up with an arrest warrant for Koberger, then arrested him, then compared his DNA to the knife sheath, and everything would have went right. That's his entire point in all of this, because he's teaching his behavioral fusion. Now, you add the extra step, though. Once they've got the K-bar knife and the Hyundai Elantra logged on the timeline, then you go to the information we now have about the family tree experiment. And that's the fact that Othram uploaded their SNP profile to the genealogy databases on or before the 8th of December, 2022. Does that date sound familiar? 8th of December, 2022? 8th of December, 2022 is the date that Maori got back the list of people who had purchased the K-bar knife. So December 8, 2022, I have no reason to believe Othram did not follow appropriate protocols to access these two databases. But Othram was ordered to cease casework on the 10th of December, 2022, just 2 days after they entered it into the database and 2 days after they got the list of K-bars that were purchased back. Then we know the next step on there was the FBI Los Angeles team began building family trees on the 13th of December, 2022. Named Brian Koberger as a suspect by the 19th of December, 2022. So they got a list of names from this big family tree experiment that Othram and the FBI did using their bioinformatics and everything else. So when you follow the timeline, you take the 29th of November for the car and started compiling that list. The 8th of December, they get a list of everybody, including Brian Koberger's family, who had purchased this particular K-bar. The FBI then takes over the Othram sample and builds this big family tree on the 13th. And then by the 19th, they provide his name to law enforcement as a tip. They actually provide his name to themselves as a tip. So when you take this together, it's really easy to figure this out. They got a list of people who purchase K-bars. Koberger's name is on the list. They got a list of people who drive Hyundai Elantras. Koberger's name is on the list. They've got a list of people who live in Idaho that matches these other two lists. Koberger's name is on the list. And then they created a family tree, and Koberger happens to be one of the names in that family tree. So even though they've probably got thousands and thousands and thousands on these three, they probably have 1,000 on this one by the time they're actually done with it using bioinformatics. It's easy for them to use their software to put all of this information into a computer algorithm, and it funnels it all together and spits out Brian Koberger as the suspect in the case. Now, here's what we need to understand about all of this. Now, what I've done is I've taken this scenario and removed any case files or anything and just using straight data. And here's what we come up with. It says, yes, the federal investigative agencies employ analytical technologies and structured processes that can integrate genetic genealogy results, extended family trees and candidate lists, with other investigative data layers, such as purchase or transactional records, to prioritize and refine a list of investigative leads or potential suspects. However, this is not a fully autonomous black box computation that independently outputs a ranked suspect list without human analysis. I don't know if that's true. I think it is. Core process used by federal agencies. After an extended family tree is constructed via investigative genetic genealogy, the resulting candidates are treated as investigative leads. These are then cross-referenced with independent data sources such as criminal history, residency, employment, vehicle records, and transactional purchase information obtained through legal process such as subpoenas or warrants. The goal is to narrow the pool by consistency with case facts, e.g., a person in the genetic candidate pool who also purchased the specific knife of interest. Now, federal practice includes entry of relevant cases into the FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, VICAP, which supports analysis and comparison of violent crime data across jurisdictions. Do we see that mentioned anywhere in this case? An unsigned document titled Behavioral Unit of FBI VICAP, RE Idaho students, VICAP number. It was absolutely entered into their VICAP system to produce a VICAP number. Use of genealogical research, in-house FBI personnel or contracted specialists, combined with traditional investigative methods to generate and evaluate leads, kinship analysis software, and related bioinformatics tools for evaluating genetic relationships when additional reference samples are obtained. Analytical technologies for multi-source integration. Federal law enforcement agencies routinely use link analysis, data fusion, and visualization platforms to connect disparate data types, genetic candidates, transactional records, geographic information, and timelines. Data fusion, does that sound familiar? Cy Ray's book, Behavioral Fusion and the Validation of Evidence, Data Fusion. Widely adopted tools in this category include commercial link analysis software, such as systems in the IBM i2 family that allow investigators to ingest lists of genetic candidates from family trees, overlay purchase transaction records, addresses, phone data, and other identifiers, visualize relationships, co-occurrences, and timelines, apply filters or scoring rules: age, sex, location, proximity to crime scene, purchase timing, etc., to prioritize individuals for further investigation, surveillance, interviews, confirmatory DNA testing, which we know all happened in this case, except for the interviews. That was after. These platforms support the computation of prioritized lists by identifying individuals who appear in multiple independent data layers: genetic proximity, knife purchase, other case relevant attributes. Emerging commercial and research tools offer automation for the initial triage of DNA match list and partial family tree construction, which can feed into the broader analytical workflow. Then it gets into the limitations and human role, but I don't think there is any human role in this. I believe it all went into the software. They simply compiled lists, put it in their software, popped out Bryan Kohberger as the candidate, and then took it from there. Now, it has always been my theory that law enforcement had already identified Mowich and Kopacka, or either Mowich or Kopacka. I know they identified Mowich, so that one's a given. They may have identified Kopacka as well. I believe they did, but they knew that they couldn't tie either one of them to the white car. So they were looking for an unknown person who was driving the white car. That was the final stage of their investigation. And after this, it popped out Bryan Kohberger's name, and it looked like they had him. But this is the best example I can give of why Cy Ray is saying a pattern of life shows that he's the one who did it, because he literally listed in his evidence the purchase of the K-bar knife, the white car. I mean, it went right down a list. In the data he's talking about, whose name popped up on a warrant, on a police report before the IGG, it's absolutely the Amazon warrant for the K-bars. That's proven now. So here's what the problem really is, though, is when you actually do the human element of the investigation, you find out these computer algorithms suck. And that's where our boots on the ground investigating actually came into play. That proves it actually wasn't Bryan Kohberger based on their own data. Everything that was tested from the crime scene against Kohberger was excluded as him being a contributor. All the hair, all the blood, nothing in his car, nothing in his apartment, nothing in his parents' house, nothing tying him to the crime but the speck of DNA on the knife sheath. The fact that once we actually look at the wounds on the victims, the knife that was consistent with the wounds had a serrated edge. So if it was a K-bar that matched the knife sheath, it was the model that did not match the model that they searched for. They searched for the straight edge model, not the one with the serrated edge. The fact that the FBI actually identified all the cars seen on video in Moscow as a 2011 to 13 Hyundai Elantra, the only vehicles, after going through every record, that the FBI expert identified as a 14 to 16 Hyundai Elantra, were the videos of Kohberger's actual car coming home on the cameras in Pullman, and vehicles that are provably not Bryan Kohberger's car because they have fog lamps. Those were the only vehicles they ever identified as a 14 to 16. The ones in Moscow, always 11 to 13. Missed the boat on that one as well. Then the thing that everybody misses in this case, but I will not miss it because I've done the research and I've done the studying in the docs to what the expert said. And Leah Larkin clearly says no matches to the forensic sample were related through Bryan Kohberger's mother. In other words, even if the matches to JS and AV were obtained legitimately, and even if the match to AV was not affected by endogamy, the FGG search did not identify Mr. Kohberger. Several other men in the extended Kohberger family fit those DNA matches. The FGG search did not identify Kohberger. Several other men in the extended Kohberger family fit those DNA matches. Koberger doesn't. Other men in Koberger's extended family does. I'm willing to bet if we looked in hard enough, they gave us the information, we'll find that one of those men in the extended Koberger family worked in the factory right up the road that made the knife sheath and handled it before they shipped the brand new thing out.